Some Would Say Whiskey. And this next installment of our cocktail series, I wanted to give you guys a good foundation, just kind of a jumping off point into an old fashioned. Real quick, as always, we'll go over just a little bit of history. The old fashioned is traditionally most commonly considered as one of the oldest cocktails that's still drank to this day. Back in the day, since it was invented itself before Prohibition and before American bourbon was really a thing, it's actually traditionally a rye cocktail. For our purposes here, we are going to do bourbon, just because bourbon is everyone's drink of choice nowadays, a little more approachable, and odds are you're going to have a few more bourbons around the house and you're going to have rye. So we're going to start with bourbon old fashioned. Couple of things to keep in mind about the old fashioned. If you do use rye, you're actually going to want to switch up your garnish from an orange to a lemon. Without getting into it, essential oils and some of the acids present in a lemon are just going to accent rye whiskey a lot better than an orange will per se, or than a lemon will on bourbon. So keep that in mind. You're always going to want to use a lemon peel with rye and orange peel or orange bitters with bourbon. A little bit of something I wanted to dive into as well. The old fashioned is very much a cocktail that you'll see trillions of variations on. This again, jumping off kind of foundational point. What I want you guys to do is start here, and then for your next old fashioned, maybe switch up, go from a regular simple syrup to a more complex like Demerara, or a watered down simple honey, something like that. You'll get with different sugars and different whiskey combinations, different bourbon or rye combinations, you'll see that you'll pull a little more characteristics out of the whiskey. Demerara is a little bit richer, so it's going to stand up a little bit better. It goes really well in whiskey cocktails. For our purposes today, I'm just using simple 1-to-1 simple syrup that's made by weighing 1 pound of simple syrup, 1 pound of sugar, and then 1 pound of water, dissolving it. Alright, so muddling fruit in an old fashioned. Started way back in the day as just something that they essentially had to do, because the spirit that they were using, or the whiskey that they were using in the day, was such horrible quality. And when I say back in the day, I'm referring to like Prohibition era, pre-Bottled and Bond Act, where the consumer had no protection as to what they were buying. There was no guarantee that what was in that bottle was actually whiskey. People were getting all kinds of motor oil, spittoon runoff. People would just add things like lead-based paint to whiskeys to get them to be darker. All kinds of things like that. So muddling fruit started out as bartenders and whiskey drinkers' way of kind of adapting to the ruggedness of that spirit and that truly horrible quality. They wanted to cover it up with a lot of fresh sugars, a lot of those fresh acids, and essentially just drown out the taste of the spirit as much as possible. Because back in the day, they weren't after the taste of the spirit as we are now. They were after strictly the effect. Alright guys, if y'all are following along with these videos at home, y'all are starting to gather more and more bar tools as we go down the rabbit hole of bartending at home. The only things that we're going to need today are most likely stuff that you already have from previous videos, or you might have for your bar cart, or for your displays at the moment. The main thing we're going to need is just a nice mixing glass. This one here is obviously crystal. This one is, we actually found it at an estate sale, so it's nice and vintage. But that part doesn't matter. You just need a cocktail mixer of any kind. Clear cocktail mixers really help technique, and they really help you kind of watch what you're doing and observe the technique of the actual mixing of the spirit and dilution, which is what we're after. Towards the very end, we're going to use this strainer again. This is a Hawthorne strainer. Obviously it fits on there real nice. It's going to filter out all of our ice. For an old fashioned, one of the most weird kind of particular tools that you might have to run out and get is going to be one of these guys. This is just a bar spoon. A spoon at home will work, but if you notice, this guy is really tiny and has a really interesting angle. That's to help you aerate the cocktail and get proper dilution. You're not necessarily going to make or break your old fashioned based on using or not using a bar spoon, but it is going to help you quite a bit. And then one of the other most important things that we're going to use, we've used this guy before, is a jigger. Again, this side just measures up to 1 ounce down to 1/4 ounce. This side is measuring an ounce, ounce and a half, or 2 ounces. And then for actual ingredients of the cocktail, at the moment we are using some OGD Bonded, courtesy of Joe Hernandez, my film crew and one-man editing team. This here is our simple syrup. We touched on that earlier. It's 1-to-1 ratio. Your biggest thing is you always want to make it by weight. Don't just do 1 cup of sugar and 1 cup of water. Always weigh your ingredients. Personally, for me, I love black walnut bitters in an old fashioned. They add just a little bit of kind of a smoked wood, a smoked oak, obviously a nuttiness, a little bit of richness to it. You're going to use the classic bitter. These are Angostura bitters. And then me personally, I'm a big fan of orange bitters in my bourbon old fashioned. So this is Regan's orange bitters. And RIP to Mr. Gary Regan, true legend. All right, guys. Now the moment we've been waiting for, so to speak. We're going to teach you how to actually make this drink. So the first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to want to add your ice first to your cocktail mixer. Ingredients for cocktails, ingredient order does absolutely matter. There's only a few cocktails that I'm going to be really strict about your ingredients, the order of the way you put your ingredients in, and Old Fashioned actually is one of them. So you're going to do ice first, and then we're going to move to our bitters. So for me personally, my kind of perfect ratio, my sweet spot is 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. So I'm going to start there. 2 solid dashes. And then we're going to go 2 dashes of orange bitters. And then I'm going to go, so I love black walnut bitters in my old fashioned, so this is kind of one of those personal touches. I'm going to do a little more. I'm going to do 3 dashes of my black walnut bitters because I like a really oaked, really wood, kind of nutty old fashioned. So bitters, ice in the glass. We're going to go jigger. We're going to reach for our sugar next. Again, fine tune the ratio of sugar that you want to use. For me personally, I like to taste my spirit, so I'm going to put just about 1/4 ounce of my simple syrup. And then again, fine tune your ratio for your spirit. For me, I'm just going to go with a quick 2 ounce old fashioned. Oh, maybe 2.5 ounces. And then one of the most important things here is the bitters are going to start kind of melting our ice, and they're going to start that dilution process. But when you're stirring an old fashioned, what you're doing is you're making dilution happen just quicker, and you're controlling the dilution rate. So you might think it's kind of silly, but a good rule of thumb that bartenders use is going to be 20 clockwise stirs and then 20 counterclockwise stirs. When you do this, you're watching for evidence of the glass getting colder. You're going to see it chill up, get some condensation. You're also going to want to keep the spoon at the bottom of the glass as close to the edges of the mixer as you can, in nice circular motion. And now, dilution is something you want to play with as well. The perfect dilution rate is designed to give you enough water to maximize the opening up effect of your spirit, but not so much that you're drinking a very watered down spirit. You don't want to turn 2 ounces of whiskey into 5 ounces of drink, because that's going to be way too diluted. You're not really going to taste the whiskey. It's essentially going to be like brown water. For this one, we're going to serve it, I'm actually going to serve it neat, because I dilute my old fashions pretty heavily and don't like them diluted much further. And we're going to pour into this gorgeous Someone Say Whiskey glass, courtesy of Rodney Smith. But that Someone Say Whiskey is a very easy, simple introductory to an old fashioned. It's a good place to start the journey and start the foundation of learning for what an old fashioned should be. And I'm going to give this a try. I make pretty damn good cocktails, if I don't say so myself. But Someone Say Whiskey, I love you all. Y'all have a great night, and thanks so much for watching.